Today we're going to talk about, you guys know it's Financial Fridays, and I try to give you guys some information as well as some education that will help you make different decisions, or if or some different, some make some different. Oh wow, oh my, or some choices that possibly you might not have thought about before. For those of you who do not know, I am the Money Mentor. I have been in financial services for since I graduated from college, Lord, in 2001, working in banking. Right, right, Brandon. That's what I said. Working in financial services, coaching businesses, growing businesses. I have my own businesses as well. So I've got 15, 16 since 2016, 15 years of coaching families, of building business, etc. No, I am not going to rap at all. Sorry, I sing. I don't rap, and I'm not planning on singing today either. So, all right. You guys know how this works. If you don't know, here it is. What you want to do, that's awesome. What you want to do is if you have questions, post them. Again, I have both Facebook Live and Periscope up. So if you see me doing this, I'm looking at two different screens. So bear with me if I miss your question. I apologize. I will give you a moment at the end to ask any questions that I missed. So if I do, looking to have multiple streams of income. Awesome, definitely. So if I miss a question, please, I'm not ignoring you. Well, some questions I will ignore. If you're on Periscope, you'll see that there are some questions I will ignore, or some statements because they're just not relevant to what we're talking about. Like somebody just said they were anyway. So I want to talk to you guys today about I have a full fledged belief that if you want to own a home, that is awesome. I don't tell people that they definitely have to own a home. I do. I believe because I do believe that there are some instances where renting is actually better. And anyone, as someone who has been doing this for 15 years, there are several reasons and several scenarios where where it is better for you as an individual or as a family to rent. And so I'm not saying that everybody has to. I do believe that the American dream is a load of garbage in terms of the American dream is typically to own a home. I don't necessarily buy that. I do understand where it came from, and I do understand the good part of it that says that if that a lot of wealth for most people, the majority of wealth set or the majority of that asset amount that an individual typically has comes from the valuation of their homes. The problem is if you owned a home pre 2007, you know that home does not have the same type of valuation that it had once before. Now, if you wait long enough, if we wait long enough, then you will get that value back. But what that literally did for us is it completely reset the market. What does it say? If you move or work. I'm sorry, I missed that. They don't always, yeah. If what the market did is it basically reset everybody. So most people let me say before the value hit, as interest rates were dropping, what happened is the prices of homes got bigger, and so they were inflated. And really, what happened is that there were certain homes that people were buying for $300,000, $400,000 that were really worth $200,000. And once the market crashed, again, that valuation dropped, and then that $200,000 in equity is now gone from that person's portfolio. So I do believe that real estate is a very good investment. I think it is a very good investment. But again, I don't think it's not the only It's not the only investment, and it's not something that everyone necessarily has to have. But, and this is where we're going today, if you choose to have a mortgage, I highly recommend doing a 15-year mortgage. The differences between the 15-year mortgage and the 30-year mortgage, and the reason why I believe in the 15-year mortgage is most of us, number one, are buying homes at around the 30-year, about 30 years old. And if you are 30 years old, most of us have a desire to retire, first and foremost, probably around the age of 65. And once you retire at around the age of 65, you would literally have only really realized the true investment on your home for 5 years. So if you're 30, you have a 30-year mortgage, there is 5 years of where you don't have a mortgage. And so that means really you are at that point getting the full value of the investment that you have made, because now you are now not paying a mortgage at all. You still, when you have a 30-year mortgage and pay it off, after it's over and done with, you still have to pay property taxes, and you will still have to pay maintenance and upkeep. However, again, you're not paying a mortgage, and so therefore, again, you are now you're now realizing the full value of the investment in your home. Secondly, the difference between a 15-year and a 30-year mortgage is going to be the interest rate. Typically, your interest rate on a 15-year mortgage is going to be lower than it is on a 30-year mortgage. So the numbers, we're going to go through some numbers here in a second, but what you're going to see is based upon that day's market, the market rates for that day. The interest rate on a 30-year mortgage was 3.36%, and whereas the 15-year mortgage was 2.7%. So the 15-year is going to be a less interest rate, which means, of course, that you're going to be paying less out of pocket. And remember last week we talked about the total cost of borrowing when we were dealing with cars. Well, this is the same thing when you're talking about a mortgage. There is a total cost. Anytime you go to sign paperwork for a mortgage, just like when you sign paperwork for a car, you're going to get that statement that shows you how much you're borrowing, how much your interest rate is, how much interest you're paying, and then it's going to show you the total cost of the home that you are purchasing. So remember that I'm talking about the total cost is going to be cheaper when you have a lower interest rate, and because of I'm single and 51 now, wanting to buy a home, so a 15-year mortgage is what I should be looking at. Correct. That is correct. There's going to be so the total cost is going to be cheaper because you're paying for it for 15 years less. So the question somebody just said that they're 51 and single looking for a home, should they be looking at a 15-year mortgage? I said correct. If you're 51 and 51 and 30 is 81. And so unless you have some income that you solely know is going to be there for the next 30 years, or you plan on working for the next till you're 81 years old, you definitely want to do that. So, is there a tax deduction? There is a tax deduction for mortgage. So when you do typically get to write off the interest for it. However, again, in most situations, the tax deduction for your mortgage is not, it's not like, ooh, like you're not just going to blow it out the water for that because of that. So, and plus, if you really need a tax deduction, then we could talk about, there are other ways that you can get tax deductions through charitable giving and, other things like that. So it is one way to get a tax deduction. That is correct. So it's less time. So again, you have to think about it. Over the length of my life, is my goal really to retire at whatever this age is? And then here's another thing that I don't think that we typically think about is that as we get older, we typically don't need more house. We typically need less house. Because once you get to a certain age, and if you have children, for example, and your children are gone, and you don't need that much space, then really most people get to a certain age and realize they don't want the maintenance and upkeep that comes with a house or with a home, and so they wind up downsizing into something smaller that is more manageable and more less maintenance, so they can do the things that they really want to do, and again, because they don't need the space anymore. So now it becomes less about having a big home or having a more expensive home, and more about just the quality of life that you have by being able to come and go as you please to do what you want. So several reasons why I'm for it. Now here is the caveat. The caveat to that is when most people, and Teresa, she's on here, she's a realtor. Most people go, so she can attest to this. Most people go into buying a home with a certain amount that they can afford. because of their pay or because of how much money they're willing to spend. As when you are doing that, because you're going to go 15 years less, it is going to change the amount that you can afford, or excuse me, the amount of home that you can buy. So on a 30-year mortgage, for example, you can buy more, just like in a car, if you spread the payments out over a longer period of time. And so, I'm sorry, what'd you say? Yes, is it bad to borrow or use money from your IRA or 401k? It's not the first choice. No, it should not be the first choice to do that. However, if you have a Roth IRA, there are penalty-free withdrawal options from Roth IRAs if you're purchasing a home. So you'd have to definitely check with the IRS code to get the specifics, but there is a certain amount that you can get that's not going to cost you money if you had to out of your Roth IRA to purchase a home. Again, the amount of home you can buy. So you may be, and I'm just giving a fictitious number, able to afford a $200,000 home based upon a 30-year mortgage. Well, whereas if you're going to go in a 15-year mortgage, then you might only be able to afford a $150,000 home, because that payment is really what you're looking at. You're looking at, I can only afford a $750 payment. So whatever amount of house I can get at that price point is what I'm going to buy. So that's going to be the drawback for that. And some people aren't willing to do that. I personally think it is worth it because I don't, and I'm a man, so I get that I have different views about this. And because of what I do, I think in terms of the cost, the real cost, that I think that a home is supposed to be both a mixture of a place that you enjoy, but it's also supposed to be a place that you can get a return on. So I look at something as, if I'm going to go, I would rather buy less house and have 15 years or 10 years worth of appreciation where I'm not paying any mortgage, where I'm not, where I'm just literally just living in this place and my only responsibility is to maintain it and to pay the property taxes every year, as opposed to buying a bigger house that I'm going to have to pay for 30 years. And then at the end of 30 years, then I'll really be able to realize the real valuation. So when I say that, just so everybody understands, what I'm saying is at the end of the 15 years, once that is paid off, then now as the home appreciates, as the value of the home goes up, then what happens is that is your return. Okay. So if I buy a house for $100,000 and I pay it off, and then in 15 years, you want to go ahead and, after 15 years, and the home value starts going up, and say you sell it 20 years later, instead of your 5 years after that, then for that entire 5 years or 10 years that you kept it, all of that time, your value is going up and you're not paying into it anymore. Okay. So typically what happens is homes appreciate, and depending on the community, this is not true for every community, because there are some communities that are very underdeveloped right now. And as economies move into them, as neighborhoods are fixed up, the appreciation jumps very high. But typically when a neighborhood appreciates at 2 to 3% a year, then, and you're paying an interest rate that's, again, we look at 3.3% a year, then you're really not necessarily seeing a full appreciation until the mortgage is gone, because now you're not paying interest. So it's just like inflation is really what it is. Anytime we have inflation, what we're saying is that the value of the dollar has to be higher than what the dollar is worth, or you're really not making any, or the investment is worth, or you're really not making any money. I hope that just made sense and I didn't confuse you. If I confuse you, please tell me and I'll explain it differently. But that was like real banker talk, and I understand everybody's not banker. So here's my example. All right, I wrote out an example for you guys, so you guys can see really what the difference is in price, in total cost, and things like that, and why this is. So I hope this really does kind of make this sense. So in my example, what I have is I have a person who buys a $100,000 mortgage. Again, the 30-year interest rate is 3.36. The 15-year interest rate is 2.76. The monthly payment for the person who has a 30-year mortgage, again, based upon that interest rate, and interest rate is going to differ based upon credit score. It's going to be based upon down payment. It's going to be different based upon points. And it's going to be different based upon closing costs and fees and things like that. Okay, so we can get into that later, but those are some of the differences that the interest rate determines. So that's why I preach about credit and improving credit and having a higher credit score. The higher your credit score is, the lower your interest rate is. Okay, the higher the credit score, the lower the interest rate, unless there are some scenarios and situations where you can buy down an interest rate. But again, there is more money out of pocket to you as the borrower, okay? And the goal is not to spend money that you don't have to. So if you have a higher credit score, then you can buy down an interest rate so that your interest rate is lower. But again, who wants to do that? Just have good credit. Cool? All right, so the 30-year person in this scenario, I'm 46, tell me about rent-to-own home. We'll have to do that on a completely different one. Rent-to-own is a little bit different. The theory, the basic of rent to own is that, excuse me, is that you sign a contract saying that you're going to live in the house for a certain amount of time, and typically the landlord will set up an agreement or an arrangement that you pay a little bit extra than the rent amount in order to put aside for the down payment, or as like, I won't say a security deposit, but it's kind of like a security deposit. But we have to do another one so we can get into some more detail about what that is. Okay, I'm sorry. I keep getting sidetracked with these questions. No, I'm kidding. So again, 30-year mortgage, $100,000. The 30-year rate is 3.36. The 15-year rate is 2.76. The difference in payment, so if you have under this scenario, the 30-year mortgage, the person who has a 30-year mortgage pays without, and this is just principal and interest. This is not including taxes and insurance, okay, or PMI. The 30-year person pays about $442 a month. It's really $441.27, and the 15-year mortgage person pays $679 a month. So $441 a month or $442 a month as opposed to $679 a month would be the difference in payment. The total principal, of course, stays the same, meaning that they're both paying in principal $100,000, but the total interest here's where the difference is. The person who has the 30-year mortgage, over that 30 years, and again, assuming that they don't make any extra payments or things like that, or you don't pay any late payments or you don't have any additional fees, and just in principal and interest, just in interest, you are paying almost $58,855 in interest over that 30-year period. So that's $58,855.88. So your total borrowing cost for that 30-year mortgage comes up to $158,855.88. Okay? Now the 15-year person pays that same $100,000 in principal. Their interest charges over 15 years. Remember, the 30 years was $58,000. The 15-year person pays $22,237 in interest. So less than half. So your total cost over the 15 years drops to $122,237. Okay, so you guys see that is roughly what, 22, 32, 40, 52, $36,000 in savings by going the 15-year route as opposed to the 30-year route. Okay, and for me, the even bigger benefit is the 30-year mortgage person, if they took out a loan in May, which is right now, May of 2016, then they will not be through paying off that mortgage until May 2046. The person in the 15-year mortgage will be done in May of 2031. So you've got 15 years. Let's just assume you stay in the same home. 15 years of appreciation that you get to keep. Here is where there's some more value that is added to doing this. Let's just say something happens to you. Again, I'm 30. How old am I? I'm 36. So I'm 36. In 15 years, something happens to me. I have a son, a 3-year-old. So he would be 18 at that point. I would be 86, so I'm 36, 46, 56. I'd be 54. Oh, Jesus, I can't imagine being 54. But I would be 54. And let's just say something happens to me. I can then leave this home, this property. I can leave this property in a will to my son, and he would then at that point not have to pay a mortgage. And so now we have assumed where he doesn't have to assume an additional debt. And what I've done is I've passed down an asset that is worth at least, it'll be more, it should be, unless again we have another market crash, $100,000 home that my son can now go into. He can do whatever he wants to fix it up and all that kind of stuff. But he has a place that he can live. He has all of that's already taken care of for him. And he doesn't have to worry about going back and doing all over again and paying this same $122,000 in total cost that I've already paid. He gets that. And the only thing he would then be responsible for, again, is the taxes and the upkeep. And if he wanted to make any updates or changes to the property. Think about it in your situation. How much easier would it have been had you been able to graduate college or graduate high school and be able to move into a home, and the only thing you were responsible for, even in some of the more wealthier communities in the suburbs, like for example, I'm in the suburbs of Chicago, where your property taxes are $10,000 a year, where you have to pay $10,000 a year in property taxes as opposed to paying a $700 a month note plus the taxes and insurance that comes along with it, and the maintenance and upkeep that comes along with it. So that completely changes the trajectory. Would completely change it. I tell people, if you don't have a mortgage and you don't have student loans, that completely changes the trajectory of what you can do with your money, and it allows you at that point to then invest and have more disposable income faster, so you can invest and create wealth even faster. So that's the purpose of really doing this, and why I do not like 30-year mortgages. I think, again, that far too long that we have spent time working just to keep our head above water. We spend a lot of time just trying to make it, and most of us get so tired just trying to make it that when the opportunity arises for us to create wealth, we are too tired and too unprepared for it, so we don't get to take advantage of it. I wrote an article in 2007 that said that for some of us, that this great recession that we were going through was going to be one of the hardest times that we were going to go through, but there were going to be a select few people who would see their income multiply immensely because they were prepared to take advantage of the recession. Here it is for you Bible people. Let me tell you, in the Bible, how many times do you see recession bring about new kingdoms being established? Do you see new transitions happening where you see what we call exchanges happen, where we talk about, well, the wealth of the wicked is laid up for where we see all of this kind of stuff happen because people were prepared to take advantage of recession. I can say off the top of my head, I can think of 3 of them. But because most of us are not prepared for this, what happens is when a recession comes, we are then still in a state of waiting for someone to do something for us, and we're not able to really take advantage like we should be able to. That's my sermon for today. Amen. Pass the offering. Hallelujah. That was good. I'm going to buy my own tape. Preach, black man. That's all I got to say. So, again, I am saying this. If you have a mortgage now, interest rates right now, they're not the lowest that they've ever been, but they're pretty darn close. If they are low right now, you need to go out and seriously, if you own a home, get a 15-year mortgage, because rates in our lifetime will probably never be this low again. And if they are, fine, who cares? But you already locked yourself into a low rate 15-year mortgage, and then start paying that thing off. If you are looking to buy a home, please buy a home that you can afford the payment comfortably in a 15-year mortgage. It might mean, again, that you have to buy a little less house, but I can promise you the headache of it, the headache will be a whole lot less, because you will be able to, again, in 15 years, it's really not long when you consider the first 30 years, you're able to, at the end of that time, you can do whatever you want. You could, again, at the end of the 15 years, if you chose to wait a couple of years and sell it and get the, and get your money out, and the market goes up and prices go up, you can take advantage of it being at the top of the market, sell and buy you something else and pay cash for. But ultimately, you want to just be able to be in a position to have options. You don't want to be in a position, again, where for the next 30 years, you are a slave to the lender. And that's what I don't want for you. That's why I like 15-year mortgages. All right? I hope this helped you. Anybody got any questions? Because I'd have to get on the road. I cannot be late. Were there any questions today? I didn't say hi to everybody. So hello, Lynette. How you doing? It's good to see you. Sevilla, thank you for joining. Nakiva, hey. I said hi to Teresa. She's an awesome realtor, by the way. So if you're in Oklahoma, you want to do that. Valencia, hello. Aaron, how you doing? Tanya, I said hello. Keisha, I said hello. Everybody else on Periscope, hello. Yes, they are way more expensive. Exactly. Definitely. All right, I don't see any other questions. All right, do me two favors, please. One favor is, after this video is over, if you are on Periscope, please share this. Actually, you don't have to wait till the video is over. Please share this. If you are on Facebook Live after this video is over, I definitely will. Thank you, Lynette. I appreciate it. If you're on Facebook Live, do me a favor. When this video is over, please share this. I really want people to get this message because, again, I said it yesterday. I've been saying it all week that guess what? The absolute, you're very welcome, the absolute sign of the times and of what's coming or what's here, excuse me. And I said earlier this week that modern day concentration camps look like, and people think I'm crazy when I say this, but it's the truth. When you put a community, when you have communities or people, again, this is not subject to race. This is really subject to socioeconomics. That when you put people who have low income, no economy, and remove growth opportunities and credit, and they have very bad credit, you are seeing what a modern day concentration camp looks like. Because then that theory of Darwin that says that modern day survival of the, not modern day, but when Darwin says that it's survival of the fittest kicks in, and people become doing whatever they have to do to survive. And I get it, but the truth is we don't have to be like that. We can help one another. We can grow one another. We can grow together. We can build together. We can all share in everything that is out there. There is way more money out there than we even know about, and we can all have some. We don't have to fight each other. I'm not good enough at everything that I don't need your help. I am not. You all see me talking about money and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, he's really smart. But put me in a tech world, and I'm stupid. So if you're good at that kind of stuff, we can partner, and we can both make money. So you see how that works? There's an exchange that happens amongst each other, that when we get into places and positions that were beneficial for both of us and for all of us, we don't have to hurt one another in order to be successful. We can build and grow together, and then we can love on each other and all be happy. All right? So please share this. I appreciate it if you do. Just share it for me and let people know, again, that this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people. We want people to be very comfortable, because financial literacy is not something that is talked about enough, and it should be. I want this to be normal conversation. I want people talking about and debating about this. When people disagree with with me wanting 15-year mortgages over 30 years, I'm okay with that. We can talk about it, because at least we're talking about it, and people are able to think and make decisions for themselves and go into it knowing what they're doing. So if you do a 30-year mortgage, you know that May of 2046 is when you're going to be done paying for it, unless you make certain decisions along the way to either refinance or make extra payments. Okay, so I want you just to know that. As long as you know that, then I really okay. My job is done. You're educated, and you know the decisions that you're making and the results of those decisions. One thing. Now I remember when I bought my first house, it was probably the month before I got married. And my ex-wife is not, she's in health, so she's a nurse, so she's an RN at the time. Now she's CRNA. And I remember sitting at the table with the lender, and again, because this is what I do, I had already looked at all the paperwork. I knew what I was doing. I didn't really pay attention. I just kind of skimmed it. But she sat there and she looked at And she read like every line of every page. And it was amazing when it got to the page that showed the total cost of borrowing. She looked at me and was like, wait a second, I thought we were buying this house for X amount, but this says we're buying it for X amount. And so, at that moment, that was the time when, we had the conversation about interest and all this stuff. So I'm like, well, yeah, but it doesn't add the interest, and that's just what interest. And her eyes got lit up, and all of a sudden, I saw a light bulb come on, and she said, I don't think people realize what we're buying when we buy a house. And I'm like, no, most people don't. And so a lot of things at that moment began to make sense to her about certain things that we were doing and certain financial choices that I was making. But again, my thing is at that moment, she got it. And so I want you to have those same moments as well when you're dealing with your finances, because again, it is your money. You're the one that's having to go to work for it and produce all these income streams in order to do it. So I want to make life easier for you, better for you, and put you in a position where you can make the best decisions possible. With that being said, have a good weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers. I love you. I appreciate everything that you do for us. My second thing, I said share it. The second thing is I just recently released my first book called How to Move Up in Your Corporate Career. It is on Amazon and Kindle. Again, it is How to Move Up in Your Corporate Career. What I am doing is a very simple, like Ken Blanchard, Who Moved My Cheese type book that basically is just giving you some very basic things that you can do to ensure that you are one of the people in your corporation, in your company, and whatever you do that gets looked at and has the best possible chance of getting promoted. So more money means you can pay off more debt. More money, moving up means you're making higher salary. That means that you can do some different things and be more effective in your company. And it helps us because we are less frustrated when we see that we're progressing, especially in something that we like doing. So, all right. So pick that up for me. It's $19.99, How to Move Up in Your Corporate Career. Very short book, but it's a very power-packed book with some things that I've experienced. I tell myself a little bit in the book, but I definitely would appreciate you going out and buying it. How to Move Up in Your Corporate Career by Winfred Burns II. It's on Amazon and it is on Kindle. All right? That's all. Those are the two things I need. I appreciate you. Have a good day. Enjoy your weekend. And again, please share this video and go check out my book. I'll talk to you later. All right, bye.